We've run quite a lot of research through IrishJobs.ie on companies and the roles that they're hiring, and consistently the biggest skills, consistently the biggest shortage of skills is in the areas of IT and technology, and also in the area of languages, particularly German and the Nordic languages. Now recently we've also, we're hearing anecdotal feedback on a shortage in banking, particularly in the area of compliance, and also a shortage of qualified accountants. And then consistently, even during the worst of the downturn, there's been an ongoing shortage for salespeople, experienced and effective salespeople. Yes, we asked companies who'd hired IT professionals in the last 12 months through our IrishJobs.ie what their experience of hiring staff was. And over 60% of the people who had hired for IT positions told us that it was extremely difficult or difficult to fill those roles. What's worrying is that the roles that they were hiring for were actually at a mid to senior level. And that would suggest that there's a risk, long-term risk for business here, because with so many large foreign direct investment companies located here, if they're struggling to hire senior level roles, it would suggest that very often these roles would be pivotal roles around which they're hanging projects. And the problem is that if an international company with multiple locations can't find the senior person to run a specific project in Ireland, well, they always have the option to move that offshore. And a pivotal role like that takes with it maybe 10 other jobs that would hang around that project. And I guess the risk we run is that there's a potential for major IT projects with international companies to be run out of Ireland, but if those companies can't fill the senior roles for those, that they'll move them elsewhere and we'll lose them. So to my mind, that suggests that there's an immediate need at a higher level. There's an immediate skills shortage at a higher level, which we have to address. And I know there's a lot being done at the level of universities and education to bring a larger number of qualified staff through, which is absolutely fantastic. And in the long run, we need to do that. But immediately, if those skills aren't available in the country at the higher level, we need to bring them in. And if they're not available within the EU, because there's a general EU-wide shortage of IT staff as well, then we need to make it easier for people to bring in key skills at a senior level, maybe from outside the EU. We did actually research that, and we asked them where they brought people in from outside the EU, how did they find the process? Now, there weren't that many who had done that. Yeah. But the ones who had said that in general they found the process, it was very long, it was time consuming, and it was quite difficult. Yeah. The danger is if you're bringing somebody in with a very specific skill set who's much in demand, by the time you actually get through the whole process of getting the visa, getting them over to the country, the possibility is that they may have already moved on and taken a role somewhere else. So I know that there is movement afoot to try and ease the visa restrictions on specific qualified IT people, but I think that's something that really needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency. I don't see it as being a long-term issue. I think you're talking a couple of years before we're almost playing catch-up. So we're getting the quality of graduates out. We have good junior and mid-level people coming through the system who are getting the experience. So in a number of years, you probably won't need to be bringing people in. But at the moment, and I know also it's a very emotive issue to be talking about visas for people from outside the EU when you're almost at 15% unemployment and immigration, and it is very sensitive, but it's a very, very specific need and quite an urgent, sharp need at the moment. But I think it's a short-term issue that we just need to address. We have a growing indigenous software industry here, which has been very well supported by Enterprise Ireland. Those companies are struggling to find staff as well. They have a double hit really, because not only is there an overall shortage of the sort of staff that they're looking for in the country, but they're also up against the large American and foreign companies who have big recruitment brands and who are attracting a lot of the talent because people want those brands on their CVs. One of the questions that we asked in our research was, have you outsourced your IT? Have you outsourced IT projects outside of Ireland? The majority of the people who'd actually responded to our questionnaire were Irish companies. So this was this is very relevant to, say, Irish software businesses. 80% of them said no, they haven't outsourced or they haven't offshored any of their IT development or their IT function. But 20% have. That's they're very pragmatic reasons for doing that, because they said it gave them access to skills that they can't get in Ireland, and in many cases they could do it at a lower cost than they could do in Ireland. So on the face of it, that's a very pragmatic business reason. I would say that long term, the danger for IT companies, for say Irish software companies, is that if at a startup stage, obviously you're looking at your costs and you're trying to keep your costs low. But as you grow and you're looking for investment, a key thing that investors will be looking at is that they're buying into the intellectual property of that company and they're buying into the management team of that company. If the management team of a software or technology company have actually outsourced all of their IT development to another company or to another country, then actually the intellectual property isn't really residing within that company, and I think they'll struggle long term for investment. About 4 or 5 years ago, I remember talking to a number of our clients who were IrishJobs.ie clients who were big international companies, and the feedback that they were saying was that the graduates they were getting from Irish universities, say the computer graduates, the science graduates, they weren't really happy with the quality or the level of the graduates, and they felt that they fell down somewhat on problem-solving skills. Recently, what the feedback we've been getting is that the universities have taken that message on board and they're addressing it, and they're working much more closely with industry, and the quality of the graduates and the focus of the courses in university are much more aligned to the needs of industry. So that's very positive, and I think that we've actually managed to address that issue, and it's improving, and we'll see that only getting better over the next couple of years. The concern I would have is that while that change has been done at third level, it hasn't filtered through to primary and secondary level. And being a parent and having 2 girls who are going through primary and secondary school at the moment, my concern is that there's still a huge focus at primary and secondary level on the humanities, and that there isn't actually enough focus being put on maths and science, particularly for girls. I mean, there's the age-old problem of girls and believing that they're not good at maths, and more girls opting for lower level maths than higher level maths. So I think maybe there needs to be more work done there on how the maths levels are worked out, and how we pitch different levels, rather than it's at one very, very high level or one catch-all level. Perhaps there's some sort of level in between where a larger majority of people can fall into, which will help them and give them a higher level going into university or third level. The other one is, it concerns me that in a lot of schools, science is still considered to be an optional subject. I think science should be a mandatory subject. English and maths and science and a foreign language should be a mandatory subject in my view. And I think we should be taking foreign languages and science and introducing them at an earlier stage and right into primary school as a larger part of the curriculum. It also strikes me that if you look at the likes of Coder Dojo and the success that they're having, taking kids from a very early age and teaching them the basics of coding, again in schools, I am not having a pop at the teachers at all. I know that they're doing a fantastic job, and they're teaching a really solid all-round education. But there is maybe an opening for bringing in expertise into schools at primary and secondary level, in the same way as we bring in teachers to do speech and drama and dance and music classes. Could we not bring in teachers to do coding?